Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to this very important topic. I know over the course of the last 5 years where I've been part of Muhsen, I've had a chance to speak to people within the community, within the masjids, and this is something that is very it's a humbling position to be in, because largely, when we look for people with special needs to talk for that community, it's difficult because I can't say I speak for everybody. I don't know what everybody is going through, and there's many different types of special needs. We've been taught to believe, and everybody has their view of how special needs looks like, but it comes in many different forms. And the message to the board was, it's up to our leadership to create that bridge and bring the special needs community back into the community to the point where they feel comfortable enough where they can call the house of Allah their own. This is very important. Like we're willing to face challenges on a day-to-day basis, but not feeling part of a community is one of the most difficult things. A mother of someone with a child with special needs is no different than a mother with a child that doesn't have special needs. They have the same desires, they have the same wants for their child, they have the same love, and they have the same desire to go to the masjid themselves and decompress at times, and make dua, and they want that accommodation. They don't want to hear that their child is creating noise or their child is being disruptive. That's not inclusion, and that is something that our leadership has to address. I've asked ulema that I know personally to stand up on the pulpit and make this a very clear announcement that if there is, we need to embrace the families with special needs and let these families feel that they're welcome, and inshallah work together. Ultimately, what we should learn from what the COVID environment that we are just coming out of, and I keep referencing it because it's close to everyone's heart still, is that empathy is very important. Anytime you go through difficulty, I think one of the most difficult things to do is to take yourself out of that situation and say, well, I wonder how other people are dealing with this. And there are people all throughout the community that are all in different situations. There's families with special needs, there are single parents, there's orphans, there's so many groups of people that need our support. And as a community, we're supposed to support everyone, inshallah. So one thing that we definitely want to address when talking to the boards is there are certain things that plague our community. Unfortunately, it's things that have stemmed over time. And we need to go to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is we assume too much without asking questions or gaining knowledge. If you see Omer Zaman and he has a form of muscular dystrophy, that doesn't mean everyone that has muscular dystrophy is like Omer Zaman. Everyone is their individual person. Everyone has their own personalities, their own experience, their own family life. And all of those play into how we view the world. Alhamdulillah, I'm blessed with my Muhsen family, my friends, my community for my entire life. And as Sister Fiyal had mentioned, I was diagnosed at 17. So up to the age of 17, I lived a life as if everything was typical, everything was normal. I played sports, I did everything. And my view of life comes from that experience. But there are people with special needs who were born with that, and they didn't ever experience the things that I experienced. So we cannot make accommodations or judgments based on learning a name or going through Wikipedia. You have to do this on a day-to-day basis. Muhsen will get you 90% of the way. Through the Masjid certification program, through all of the programs we have to support the community, we can only get you 90% of the way. What does that mean? You have to reach out to the people in your community. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own needs. Their family has their own needs. And as one of the things we always love about listening to stories of the seerah and discussing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his degree of empathy, and how is it possible that the most important man to walk this earth knows people, almost as many, pretty much everybody in his community and what they need, and he's aware of it. How is that possible? Are we busier than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Right? And that's not possible. And I think it comes down to one thing: we need to start being empathetic to other people's needs. I've heard from people all the time, and I mentioned this a little earlier. Well, they don't have to do that because Allah has forgiven them. First of all, it's not always about do's and don'ts. It's not just about halal and haram and fard, and and sunnah. No, it's about spirit, like your spiritual needs as well. We families that are touched by special needs want to hear Quran. They want to listen to beneficial knowledge. They want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the people who have been gifted this knowledge and who have been allowed by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be ulama are the people we look to. If they forget us, if they don't remember us, then who do we have left? You know, you have even family members sometimes will say, and I'll tell a personal story. I wanted to go to Jummah, and early on, my father would say, you know, you don't have to go. You know, you have difficulties, you can't walk, it's tiring for you. And he was doing this as with compassion. He's my father. He loves me. He doesn't want me to see me get hurt. And this ultimately turned into a debate slash argument that became, no, I want to go. This has nothing to do with if it's going to be accepted or I have to or what's the fiqh. It has nothing to do with that. And it never does. When you talk to people with special needs, it doesn't mean anything. Now, going back to the environment we just came out of, if somebody told you, listen, there's COVID-19, you don't have to go to the masjid. Did that stop the millions of people that said, but I want to? No, it didn't stop anyone. People kept saying, I want to go, I want to go. They would look at pictures of the haram. It's the same thing. It's the same emotion. It's not the same circumstance, but the feeling is the same. And I don't want to get overly emotional about it, but it's important that our leadership knows this. Muhsen has done everything it possibly can to reach out to our masjids. I can almost attest to the fact that we've reached out to almost every masjid in the United States. And if we haven't gotten a response, it's largely because people have not responded. And there's other reasons for it. You know, there's a famous saying, right? If you build it, they'll come, right? And I don't want people to sit there and think, well, you know, how many people are in our community? Is it worth the funding? Absolutely not. That's not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Absolutely not. It has nothing to do. It has to do with the fact that you represent your leadership. You've done this voluntarily. Nobody has asked our politicians to become politicians, our police officers to become police, and nobody's asked our ulama to become alims. That is a voluntary role, and you've taken on a leadership role, and you have to lead everybody. You have to work for everybody. You have to protect everybody physically as well as spiritually. You have to make sure that the environment is safe, but also that everybody's learning. This is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, from my limited knowledge. And the thing is that when you go into the Masjid certification program, if you can go on, Muhsen.org, you can see it's clearly listed there what gets you to the 3 different levels. There's silver, gold, and platinum. And we started with this because we also empathize with our communities. We know we can't straight go to platinum. We know it's going to take time. We know it's going to take money and effort. We understand all of that. Therefore, it's something that we want our communities to build up to. Yes, ideally, we want platinum everywhere. But, you know, I said something a long time ago when I first joined Muhsen. The goal of Muhsen is to not exist. It's just like any non-profit. You don't want to exist. You want people to get to the level of empathy so that all of these things are taken care of. The reason it started is because there was a big gap in our community and people neglected many families with special needs. The reason you're not seeing them in your community is not because they don't exist. It's because they're afraid to come out. 1 out of every 5 Americans has special needs. 1 out of that's 20%. The other aspect of it is 600,000 Muslims have special needs, a form of it. And I just very quickly just looked up on Google how many Muslims are in America. And in a study done in 2017, it said 3.45 million. So that's right around 17%. That's right, that number, 1 out of every 5. So that means in every saf, there are people with special needs. How do we get to special needs? Some are born with it. Some are in accidents or something happens in their life where they develop special needs. Some have debilitating diseases like myself. Some just get old. The elderly. There are people that develop special needs because of their age. And you wouldn't have those masjid if it wasn't for the blood, sweat, and tears of those elderly people. And that's why we're asking everyone, please, this is our responsibility. I speak up for it because I want to be part of the community in the masjid, but there are plenty of people with special needs that don't want to talk anymore. They've lost complete hope. And that's something that I have not lost hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have not lost hope in our ulama. I have not lost hope in our communities, and that's largely because of the work Muhsen is doing. They allowed me to be a part of this organization, alhamdulillah, through the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They allowed me to be someone who could be a voice for people with special needs. And I don't take that lightly. I don't take this platform right now lightly. I know I'm missing something. I know I didn't address something. And it hurts me, the fact that I don't know as much as I should, but we have to work together. It's something that we cannot stop doing. It's something that we have to continue to build on year in and year out. Now, I mean, some of the things on the certification program are very simple. Basic accommodations for the building, like wheelchair accessibility, elevated for multiple floors. You're talking about we have a special needs survey or an assessment that actually is customized so that people in your own community will respond to it and you know who they are. If you are a imam or a board member or a person of leadership in your community, I'm asking you, please stand on whatever platform has been given to you, or on a mic, or just email blast people and say, if you know somebody in this community that has special needs, please tell them, this is my email address, this is my phone number. Let's set up a schedule to meet in our office to discuss, what do you need? Not, okay, you're in a wheelchair, we need ramps. That's part of it. But there's an emotional need. There's a spiritual need. You may not understand what every single family needs. If you have time throughout the day to set up those individual appointments, like one of the issue is people say there's not that many people in our community with special needs, then this shouldn't be that difficult. And if there's only 5 people in your community with special needs, then realistically, you should be able to meet all 5 people and figure out what they need and execute it. And Muhsen will help facilitate that. If you don't know, it's perfectly okay. If you don't know what to do, there's nothing wrong with that. The fact that you're willing to do it is the goal today. The fact that you're willing to do it is the goal, and that is something you can reach out us at info@muhsen.org, and we can help you get the tools. We can help you get the knowledge that you may need to establish whatever programs you're looking to establish. And now, when I mentioned there's multiple types of special needs, I'm just going to read off of a quick list that even myself, I didn't even understand they all existed. Vision, hearing, thinking, learning, movement, mental health, memory, communication, social relationships. I mean, we could literally find anybody in our community that has one of these things. And the question is, what have we done to address it? So I know that this has been, maybe a little bit of a harsher tone, because the reason is because if I'm here and I'm speaking for people with special needs, I'm here because I myself have a special need. Speaking on behalf of it, I have an obligation to speak as clearly and as bluntly as possible on what we need. And what we need is your support. And what we need is you to reach out to our families and reach out and work with Muhsen. And if you had a chance or something happened or you forgot, no problem. Let's bridge that gap again, and let's continue to work, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.